Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Called the Miranda warning, we've often heard cops in Hollywood movies reciting these lines right before arresting the suspects. But do we have a similar right to remain silent in India? We began KYC or Know Your Constitution this week by telling you about this right. The right to remain silent in India flows from the right against self-incrimination under Article 20, Subclause 3 of the Constitution. Self-incrimination essentially means saying or doing something that shows that you're guilty of a crime. Now, Article 20, Subclause 3 states that no person accused of any offence shall be compelled to be a witness against himself. The Supreme Court had, in a landmark judgment in 1978, interpreted this right and ruled that an accused does have a right to keep his mouth shut and not answer any questions if the questions were likely to point to his guilt. In the judgment, the court had also asserted that nobody who is arrested should be denied the right to consult an advocate of his choice, while the court said that the police should only wait for a reasonable time for an advocate to arrive. The police must record the fact that the accused has been informed of his right to silence against self-incrimination, and if the accused is literate, the police should also take his written acknowledgement. Several provisions of the Criminal Procedure Code and the Evidence Act also help in implementation of the right. For instance, Section 161 of the Code of Criminal Procedure allows anybody being examined by the police to not answer any question that might expose him to a criminal charge or a penalty or forfeiture. This right is also the basis for not accepting involuntary confessions under the Evidence Act. Next, we told you about how the Supreme Court has read a right against handcuffing within the fundamental rights of the Constitution. It is in fact a 1978 Supreme Court judgment that forms the basis of the right against handcuffing. In the case, two convicts, Sunil Batra and a French national, Charles Sobraj, had filed a writ petition in the court against their traumatic treatment by jail authorities. Sobraj had specifically complained against use of bar fetters on under trials. The court held that bar fetters are a barbarity generally and, like whipping, must vanish. It then laid down the conditions under which bar fetters can be used on prisoners. For instance, it said that they must be used only when it is absolutely necessary and when there is no other alternative to ensure secure custody. A year later, another under trial, Prem Shankar Shukla, sent a telegram to the Supreme Court saying that he and some other prisoners were being forcibly handcuffed when they were escorted from the prisons to the courts. The court then spoke strongly against routine handcuffing of prisoners. It said that Articles 14 and 19 make it clear that there is no compulsive need to fetter a person's limbs. It also pointed out that even a detainee is entitled to a limited freedom of movement and said that it cannot be cut down cruelly by handcuffs or other hoops. The court also said that handcuffing on the face of it is inhuman, unreasonable, arbitrary, and so it violates Article 21 of the Constitution. It therefore said that the rule should be no handcuffs and any deviation from the rule should be explained. This was further reiterated by the court in 1995 when it declared that as a rule, neither a convict nor any under trial should be handcuffed. It said that if the police or jail authorities have a reason to demand handcuffing, they should get an order from the magistrate for it. On KYC Next, we told you about the right to consult with a lawyer and get free legal aid. Article 22, Subclause 1 does specifically recognize this right, saying that anybody who is arrested should be allowed to consult and be defended by a lawyer of his choice. The Supreme Court has also reiterated several times over that if an accused is too poor to engage a lawyer, he should be informed that he is entitled to free legal assistance at the cost of the government. One of the first such cases was Hussain Ara Khatun versus State of Bihar, which is also considered the first reported PIL in India. The case was initiated on a habeas corpus petition filed by senior advocate Kapila Hingorani on behalf of under trial prisoners in Bihar in the Supreme Court. Among other things, the court had then in 1979 recognized the right to free legal services as a part of the reasonable, fair and just procedure required under Article 21 of the Constitution. Article 39A, which is a part of the directive principles of state policy, was also added through a constitutional amendment stating that the government should provide free legal aid. Accordingly, the Legal Services Authorities Act 1987 was enacted. The right was widely debated on in 2008 when the Bombay Metropolitan Magistrate Courts Bar Association unanimously passed a resolution that none of its members would defend terrorist Ajmal Kasab. The trial court had then appointed a lawyer to represent him in March 2009. While upholding the death sentence awarded to Kasab, the Supreme Court had then directed the magistrates in the country to discharge their constitutional duty by providing the accused with a lawyer before the trial begins. The court said that any failure to discharge this duty could lead to departmental proceedings against the magistrate. Earlier this week, senior advocate KK Venugopal was reappointed as the Attorney General for another year. So on KYC Next, we told you about the constitutional post, the duties that come along with it, and the restrictions imposed on it. Now, Article 76 of the Constitution empowers the President to appoint the Attorney General for India. Any person qualified to be a Supreme Court judge can be appointed to the post. So, to be eligible, the person should have been a High Court judge for at least 5 years, or a High Court lawyer for at least 10 years, or should be a distinguished jurist. As per Article 76, the Attorney General is supposed to advise the central government on legal matters. They can also appear on behalf of the government in any court of the country. But can the Attorney General represent private parties? Rule 8 of the Law Officer Conditions of Service rules initially barred them from representing any party other than the central or state governments or PSUs, etc. But this rule has since been relaxed, allowing them to appear for private parties in exceptional circumstances after taking permission from the Law Ministry. Notably, the Constitution does not specify the tenure for the post, so the first Attorney General for India, MC Setalvad, held the post for as long as 13 years from January 1950 to March 1963. Article 88 also allows the Attorney General to participate in the parliamentary proceedings and proceedings of any of the parliamentary committees that he may be asked to become a member of. But they don't have the right to vote in these parliamentary proceedings. This is Apurva Mandhani for The Print. For more such videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook.